I'm singing you a love song, 'cause you are the greatest of them all. Mama, where I'm giving you all honor. No one else can compare to you. Oh, you've been through it all, yet you haven't lost all your strength. Inside, I wear mama, I wear mama, I wear mama. See, I cool I wear mama, mama, I wear mama, I wear mama. See, I cool mama, where we celebrate our freedom around the world. People sing your praise. Give all thanks to the Father in heaven. Here's the key, our ability. Oh, you've been through it all, yet you haven't lost all your strength. I wear mama, I wear mama. See, I cool I wear mama, I wear mama, I wear mama. See, I cool mama, yeah, mama, yeah, mama, mama, yeah, mama, yeah, mama. See, I cool mama, yeah, mama, mama, yeah, mama,
Well, very, very good afternoon to you. If you are joining us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Well, formerly Twitter, but it's now called X. I don't know what Elon Musk is busy with, but it's his money, but it's a platform that we use. So in a weird way, we are dealing with Elon Musk's X. And I'm not so sure if that's what he wanted us to have. Anyway, thank you all the same for these wonderful platforms that we can use. If you have joined us, you are in Amsterdam. That's exactly where we are. And I will explain exactly who's included in that first person plural shortly. This particular station or the space right now is focused on providing a connection for those of you who join us regularly on a Thursday evening, a different kind of connection. This connection is earlier during the day, and it's not from Stockholm, it's from Amsterdam in the heart of Holland. And particularly at a grand horticulture expo just outside of the city. And the expo is called GreenTech. And in that name, you can sort of get an idea roughly. It's green and it's technology. Specifically, it's agricultural technology. And the reason why we, Learning Academy Worldwide, position ourselves here is because we would like to know what is happening in the cutting edge in agriculture. And in so doing, we can modify how we teach young people. I've been speaking about this quite a lot, this whole thing about why we are here. Kylie?
Mm-hmm.
Does it,
indeed.
Yeah. Does it resonate with you? I mean,
100%.
you're part of the team, but does it... I'm not so sure if not everyone sometimes understand what is a learning organization doing at a space. What impressed you this far at the show?
I think from our side, a big part of this is also finding out what are the latest innovations, what is the rest of the world doing, what do we need to be bringing back into our country and to the youth specifically, so that we can expose them and also just give them access to that other education and those innovations happening elsewhere. Yes. So very important for them, but also important for us to have a presence here as Learning Academy Worldwide. And this is the second year that we've been here, so people are starting to recognize us. We're starting to expand our own branding, which is fantastic.
That's very good. Now you are in training,
correct,
all the time. Is it a good move to force yourself to get to the cutting edge of the knowledge and skills in the workplace.
100%.
Yeah.
Theo.
Has that been a problem for some companies that is in your orbit?
I think so. And I mean, there's a big shift towards occupational education, as you know, in South Africa. And there has been a lack of that link between the theory and possibly practical, but then really the workplace modules. So I think that's crucial for us to see what is actually happening when our learners, when our students go into the workplace.
Right.
So not just simulation, but actual
But
learning.
do you also see that in the workplace where there's already people are in the workplace, because you're doing training for folks who are in the workplace already, isn't it?
100%.
That as well.
Yes.
Yes. Is it so that they have a little bit of an edge? Now I'm thinking about it, because they are, whatever they are training is connected to their work right there already.
Correct. So again, if you're giving them the latest technology, the latest information, the latest knowledge, then they're able to do better in what they're doing and understand it better. So 100%, there's been a big gap, but we need to, with the new sort of qualifications coming in, we are reducing that gap.
Fantastic. That's
you.
Kylie Jansen, and she's part of the team at Learning Academy Worldwide. And she's not the only member of this team that's involved in the work that we do in South Africa, but also visiting with us here in Amsterdam. Tarita. I always said Tarita will do very well in Spain. It sounds like Spanish. Tarita just came back from Spain. Tarita, what was that like?
Oh, Spain was fantastic.
A little bit closer to the microphone for us there, Tarita. Thank you.
Spain was fantastic. The opportunities we were offered, meeting with high tech in Spain. I saw things I've never seen before, things I've never heard before. The world is definitely a little bit of a step ahead of South Africa, but we took the information back and shared it with our students, and it was definitely time well spent.
What about GreenTech this far?
Awesome.
Yes.
It is awesome. It is impressive. I expected something huge, but it's beyond what I expected.
Yes.
It's definitely amazing.
Fantastic. I know you've also had the honor to take two young students around by their ears to try and show them. Yes. What do you think? Could it be meaningful? And you and I talked a little bit about this. Could it be meaningful if next year we have a group of young people coming here?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, from George or from Harlem.
No, it would be awesome for any South African student to be here, to see what's going on in the world and how far the technology has gone. And
yes,
I think coming from rural South Africa, this will just be fantastic for them.
Yes. And I appreciate that, because I think it's always just a little bit of something new, something different that you see that can, in a way, take you home, sort of elevate your hope. I'm using the word or the expression take you home, because I'm playing in the background before we introduce our main guest here today, a song by Andre de Lang that talks about we're not home yet, but we should be going there.
Through the fire, but we are still not home yet. So many years on the way, but we are still not home. Where there's a smile for everyone. No matter what your tribe or where you come from. Where children laugh and play, elders sing, praising the gifts of plenty, harvest brings. Each younger generation, join in freedom celebration. We show the world we've come far, but we are still not home yet. We must go on, walking as one, 'cause we are still not home.
Yeah, if you've just joined us, you are with us here at GreenTech in Amsterdam, the capital of Holland, that is Amsterdam. And we have a special guest with us on this particular broadcast today. and she's none other than Dr. Rhoda Malgas, and she joins us all the way from George in the Southern Cape in South Africa. Thank you very, very, very much, Rhoda, for joining us and for being here with us.
Well, thanks for having me, Theo. I'm delighted to be with you in Amsterdam.
Yes, that's right. So you're with us in Amsterdam. That's fantastic. So we appreciate you giving us your time. I think this is going to be a good educational experience, a learning experience for us all. The idea is to really get the word out, and we're going to put the sound feed of your presentation out into the corridors here, and there's some students you hope that they can sort of get some ideas as well. So thank you very, very much for joining us. Rhoda, would you please go ahead, introduce yourself, introduce what you want to talk about with us, and we are taking notes and sharing this moment with you.
Well, thanks very much, Theo, and thank you to all the listeners in the venue and also on all the channels. It's a real privilege to say something from South Africa, about South Africa, to fellow South Africans, but also to an international community. Of course, in South Africa, we celebrate Youth Month in June, so it's such an appropriate focus for us to be talking, especially from a youth perspective today. So thank you for the privilege. So we're in South Africa, and those of us who live here think that the country is very special for many kinds of reasons. But I'm going to talk to you about why we are so special in terms of horticulture and botanical richness. So here in George, we're right in the middle of the Cape Floristic region. It is a geographic region that is defined by its vegetation. And a few things that may be interesting and surprising for your audience is that in this small area, so this is the area that's grayed, there are 9,500 known species in this very small part of South Africa. South Africa has 20,000 known species, and that constitutes about 10% of plants across the world. And so that is a very big deal. And 9,500 of those plant species are crammed here across 3 provinces, the Northern Cape, Western Cape, and Eastern Cape provinces. And we are situated right in the middle of the Western Cape province. Interestingly, this grey area is also production sites where rural youth unemployment is rife. Up to 60% of youth between ages of 15 and 24 are unemployed in these rural parts. I say 15 here just to remember that in South Africa, you only start working from 18 onwards, but this is just a statistic for youth unemployment for students or young people who go beyond grade 10. Another interesting thing about the Cape Floristic region, it's not just botanically rich, it is actually also the sites of some of the oldest human settlements in South Africa. And in fact, I visited an archaeological site just a few days ago that dates back to 80,000 years. So we've got deep history, but we've also got long human settlement histories. For instance, with the first settlement with missionaries from Germany in 1738. So apart from Cape Town in 1652, with the settlement of Dutch explorers and colonialists having arrived, so that this part of our naturally rich, botanically rich region is also a site for some of the oldest human settlements in South Africa. Now, what that means is that there's a rich store of local ecological knowledge, what we call LEK, and also quite a rich genetic store of plants in these regions. And I think that overlap is what makes it so interesting. And it's especially for that reason that I want to take a social ecological systems approach to what I'm talking about. And lastly, these production sites are the locus of horticultural production and export for some of the kinds of products that your audience, some of whom might know very well. So here's a picture of the Franschhoek Valley, and this is in the Western Cape. You'll see just what the landscape can look like, oftentimes with agricultural production in the lower reaches in the valley floors, and oftentimes then surrounded by fynbos, which is the kind of vegetation we're talking about. Now, these are the species that people may be familiar with. cut flowers, proteas, those beautiful big flowers. I hope that there are some displays there in your venue. Cape Green Heath, those are Erica species. They're usually purplish pinkish. There are also some white ones. Blushing Pride, the pincushion, also quite quite an iconic species. Cone bushes, agapanthus, barberton daisies, African lilies, and clivia. So very popular kind of flowering plants that are exported from South Africa. And I've included their estimated value in euros. This is millions of euros that these sectors are worth. So in terms of income and revenue for South Africa, the horticultural sector is absolutely important. I've just highlighted the floral ones here, but of course we've got wine, we've got fruit, we've got other exports as well. So not just these cut flowers, but these are just examples. Now, I visited the Botanical Garden on Saturday. This is in George, and this is the Outeniqua Mountains. This is a view from the Botanical Garden, and the species here in the foreground are some of the medicinal species that are known for their traditional uses across these three provinces and across different cultures that are represented in those provinces. And so these are just some examples of the sectors that we have here. I see now that the euro value didn't pull through on these, but just as an example, rooibos, probably the most popular one that people know, is worth up to 30 million per year in euros. We've got others like honeybush, buchu, thatch. Thatch usually used for building and thatching roofs. Aloes that are widely used in cosmetics and for medicinal purposes. Wild cut flowers, other medicinals like Sutherlandia species, for instance. And then interestingly, also edibles, waterblommetjies for those South Africans in your audience who may know it. So, and the Mesembryanthemacea is quite a family that is well known for its edibles. In the picture here, incidentally, is a picture of honeybush, and it's taken in my grandmother's village in the Overberg, Genadendal, and also quite a growing export from South African fynbos, very similar to rooibos. They're also taxonomically related, so they are cousins to each other. Why? A social ecological systems perspective. Now, if we take a step back and consider these landscapes, they are landscapes in which plants grow, and they are landscapes in which people live. And both the people and the plants have very long lineages in these landscapes. And people who have long generational histories of between 2 up to 6 generations in the same place often have a very intimate knowledge of those plants. And so when I approach my work around sustainable harvesting and production of horticultural species in South Africa, I always take it from this position that we've got co-evolving social and ecological subsystems that coexist and that include, on the social side, the governance systems, policies, laws, but also customs, so how people make rules about what they will and won't use, when they will and won't harvest, and so on. You've got communities of people. Oftentimes, the youth that I work with and the small-scale farmers I work with are in those communities, harvester communities. And you've also got industries like the kinds of sectors and traders, industry players that are probably at GreenTech today. And on the other hand, we have the ecological subsystems. We've got fire in our fynbos that is a disturbance regime. We've got climate, and climate is topical across the whole world and across all sectors. You've also got abiotic elements. So like, for instance, rocks and water is what we call abiotic. And then biodiversity, this rich store of genetic material that we live alongside in our landscapes. And so that's one higher level view. It's useful to take a social ecological systems perspective because we are dealing with complex social and ecological systems that are intertwined. But then maybe bringing it back home, what is the significance of an event like GreenTech for even youth here in South Africa who are not in Amsterdam today, but who are in our corridors here at the university, for instance, at the George campus, or for instance, a small forestry village that I visited recently. And I'd like to suggest that there are benefits that, even though GreenTech is far away in time and space right now, there are benefits even for local youth in terms of learning opportunities. For when I go back to Tsitsikamma in the next weeks or so, I'm going to see if I can link back to this feed and show those youngsters what are possible, what is possible. It also gives our young people exposure. Of course, you were just talking earlier about what would it mean if South African youth could visit GreenTech in the future. I think it would be remarkable exposure for them. It shows what opportunity is available in terms of business and sector development growth, and also market opportunity, and then access to networks, and benefits, other benefits, directly and indirectly, that may be useful for youth here. And those are just a few I can think of. I'm sure there are many more. And so, yeah, I think I'd like to leave it then and then leave it open to questions. But these are some touch points I'd like to leave with the audience. And hopefully there will be an opportunity for youth from South Africa to attend GreenTech in future. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very, very, very much for that. First impressions for you, Kylie, what are you thinking?
Oh, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, I've lived in South Africa my entire life and I didn't know some of that statistics and information.
yeah.
So hugely beneficial. Thank you so much,
I
Rhoda.
wanted to capitalize on that, or sort of come in, because I do think, Rhoda, and you would probably agree, and you would have seen probably more than what we've seen and have experienced having worked in these communities, that this sort of parallel, this that we expect should be there is not there. I suppose for communities that are in closer proximity to this enormously rich biodiversity ecosystems, one can expect that they should know or would know more than those who are in the bigger cities, for instance, or further or outside of those three provinces.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that brings that introduces some specific hurdles, I suppose, in terms of not only valuing it but investing in it. Is
Yes.
is that a big need? Is there a big need for investing in? And I want to sort of use what you are suggesting here, this alignment between these communities that need to be uplifted and the kind of benefits or assets that can be drawn from its rich biodiversity.
Absolutely, Theo. I always say that for me, what happens in my classroom is a good litmus test. And in my career at teaching in universities now for 15 years, I seldom have students in my class who come from these places where these products come from. To my mind, these are the young people who have grown up with this biodiversity. They know it well. Typically, Granny is still using Villa Als or whatever else to treat ailments and even
Yes.
sometimes with food. And these young people live far away from city amenities, so to get access to medical care is oftentimes a challenge. And so they know these plants in ways quite intimately, and yet very few of them end up in a higher education system where I find myself. And that makes it all the more important for other opportunities for learning, as what your organization offers, that much more helpful. Micro accreditation, for instance, and other opportunities to enter by alternative education streams, given the significant challenges we face in throughput from those regions into mainstream higher education systems.
Terita, you would know a bit on this panel of this side of the screen a little bit more than what Kyle and myself would know. What resonated with you as you listened to Rhoda?
Well, just talking about the biome and the significance of the plant species in the Western Cape. When I walk around here, I see stunning hybrids of Gerbera and Agapanthus, Strelitzias, all local South African plants that grip the world, and they've made maybe better versions, but they're all naturally from South Africa. So we've definitely got an impact on the horticultural industry. And it's not just those flowering ones. We've got lots of foliage plants as well. Fynbos itself, the heaths, people love them. Proteas, pincushions. It's how much African plants you see when you walk around here. Just using displays, not even what they're growing. People are using them as displays in their own to make their little stalls pretty.
Yes.
Yeah, I do think I remember you were saying, my goodness, we went out to buy a plant that we wanted to use to decorate our stand. When we got to the shop, the Rita was saying, my goodness, they do, how did you say it?
They
they,
do
they
it.
do it differently, or they certainly do, and that speaks a lot. Maybe sometimes we do want to agree with the old adage that, it seems to be the folks outside, those who are on the inside, don't always appreciate this. But you made me think quite a lot now about how do we design solutions for learning that, Rhoda, meshes this, that capitalize on this. Now, my sense is that in the commercial sector, it's probably sometimes tempted to maximize just the biodiversity benefit side and not the human capital development side of it. Is that your experience as well, or do you think that there or are there also good examples of case studies of a mesh of appreciation of both?
So, fortunately for me, I've been inspired my whole career by examples where both are possible and have indeed been done. What comes to mind for me now is a group of small scale farmers in the Northern Cape. They're the Hayveld Cooperative, who produce wild rooibos tea for export markets. And I saw there, I think that for me was the inspiration for my career. I saw what was possible when people and product were both invested in and celebrated together. And that model worked very well. In fact, they're still exporting sustainably wild harvested rooibos tea today. But there are, of course, also other examples where biodiversity is favored over people investment. And I'm pleased to say also that I can see steps being taken in sectors to correct that, and to especially also bring people in from the margins. The human investment, the human investment capital doesn't always spread evenly. And again, there are sectors that I know of that have communities of practice now, where those kinds of things are being addressed, and it's heartening to see. And I think, when you think about human capital investment, we're focusing on youth, but they're just one group that tend to be at the margins of mainstream business production. But I've also noticed that there are business models that favor both human and biodiversity, and also governance, good governance. I believe that you cannot conserve the species. I mean, that is our kind of core mandate, is conservation. But I say in my PhD thesis as well that you cannot conserve the species without conserving the knowledge. And if you want to conserve the knowledge, you have to consider the people whose knowledge it is. And so I think those are what you say in Afrikaans, onlosmaakbaar. You can't separate them from one another. If you try to only make a conservation investment for biodiversity's sake, you will leave the people behind, and you will defeat the purpose of the conservation. So they must go together, and an investment in one should absolutely be an investment in the other.
That's fantastic. So not just an investment in the soil, but also an investment in the soul. If that could be sort of a play on words there. That is fascinating to me. I think that I would be very interested, Rhoda, in some of these case studies of good models that are working. Are there any models about understanding the leveraging of that dichotomy out there outside of South Africa?
I'm thinking of a PhD student of mine who's just looked at the Chikanda trade in Zambia. Trying again so there's a thriving, and this is true for South African species as well, usually thriving informal markets, and not, apart from mainstream. And there her question was, how can we support what is already sustainable but in the informal market, much harder to regulate, much harder to also keep a finger on the pulse, harder to monitor. But there are people who are custodians for generations of natural resources. And, if we find ways for participatory research, research in which also people's knowledge is valued as much as technical knowledge is valued, then there are opportunities to come up with new and interesting business models that do serve sustainability. Where you have those connections together where people and species are taken into account. So yes, there are examples, but they're also not very well documented. And in a continent like Africa, where where research is advanced indeed, but oftentimes they don't show up in publications easily. For me, that is the work of us in the conservation sector on the African continent to put that forward.
So a good amount of work to be done there. Probably, it's one of those situations where I again think we had an opportunity to set the pace for the rest of the world, and we didn't. But it's never too late to start that. Rhoda, you've injected some real serious thinking here. Tarita, I'm not so sure. What are you thinking? Is this a good case to inspire and ignite young people in George and the areas?
Certainly.
Yeah,
Certainly.
yeah. But what would be key for us to overcome? You think what are some of the barriers that you think are important for us to overcome?
Well, from experience, logistics is a bit of a problem. They all live far apart, and getting everybody to a central point seems to be quite an issue. They seem eager, but it's just the logistics to get them together. And that, of course, brings funding, because without funding, you can't get anything done.
Yeah, I would absolutely. That's a sort of that's a profoundly practical thing to say. Some of us would be highfalutin and very general and in trying to explain that hurdle, but it's true. It's a real practical hurdle. Kylie, what are your concluding reflections here? We got 35 seconds to go.
No problem at all. I think for me, looking at it not so practically as Tarita, but for me, it's about showing them that the impact that they can have and the impact of what is just around them can have and does have on the rest of the world. I mean, you're busy growing proteas right next to where you live, and those proteas are worth something, and that is significant out there. And I think that sensitizing those learners and just showing them, beyond their comfort zone, I think that would be amazing, very empowering as well.
Thank you very, very much. For those of you who have joined us for this very brief moment, we were accompanied by Kylie Janssens and Tarita Polakute here in Amsterdam. Oh, and of course to you, Rhoda Mochas, who joined us from some 10,500 kilometers away. So near yet so far, or so far yet so near. Thank you so much for your precious time and for inspiring some valuable insights that I am sure will ignite some very practical sort of next steps from our side. And I'm playing a song here by Andre de Lang, and I'll dedicate the song to you. I don't want to sound like a DJ, and this song I'm dedicating to Rhoda. But the song is called Such a Treasure, and that's what you are. Thank you so very, very much. Have a good rest of your day, Rhoda, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everyone. Do the best to you.
How come I'm excited, delighted? A boy I'm in love, never knew true love could be quite like this. Oh no, I found what I'm looking for. Being without, I found what I'm looking for. Give me some home. Girl, I'm so in love with you. Ooh. I found what I'm looking for. No, 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 no.
Thank you again for those of you who joined us this afternoon. Dear Kylie, with a natural beauty, was going to run across the camera, preventing you from seeing me. That's not such a big problem for me, but thank you so much for joining us. You take good care. Have a fantastic rest of your day. We're going to be back on the air in another 10 minutes at least, because we have another final guest of today. So please come tune right back here shortly. We will be in the same space: LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Thanks for joining us for this session. Have a wonderful rest of your day.